Okay. So, when we last left off, we saw Rolo and Victus see their darker selves. We're going to go back to Rons and Bark now, as Bark is currently being dragged through, not a ghost ship, but a fully functioning vessel, fully crewed, and very much alive. He's freaking out by this. No one can seem to understand what he's saying either. He's not happy in any way, as he's being dragged into a lift, which takes him all the way down, and then he is being dragged to the brig, which is at the back of the armory. On the way through, both Rolo and Victus see a ghostly apparition of Bark being dragged by two ghostly figures, all three of which are missing their left eye. Now, in Bark's world, he doesn't see the others. He's dragged through to the brig, he's moved down to a cell, he's thrown in, and the door's locked behind him. Now, he's struggling because, again, no one can understand him at this point, because no one understands Wookiee at this point. The idea is that Wookiees haven't been discovered at this point. So, basically, after about a couple of hours being in there on his own, the captain comes down to see him. And she's very, let's say, miffed, as this giant furry motherfucker showed up on a super secret ship, on its super secret mission to transport this super secret Sith they've captured, and she's not happy. Now, obviously the communication barrier makes this difficult, so in the end they resorted to writing, as Bark knew how to write in common. They communicated through writing to each other, and instead of trying to explain to them that, oh god, you're all dead, what the fuck is going on, he tried to play it off as this is normal, because in this world, he found out from luring them that their ship has broken down. Sounds like a fucking car. Their vessel has gotten stuck, basically. Their ship stopped working, and they're not sure why. The engineers cannot find a fault with the ship. It just won't move, and they're stuck in orbit around this giant brown dwarf. So, they have released a communication out there, as they're currently in friendly territory, asking for assistance of any kind. They need help to get their ship to their destination, and their cargo is very precious and important to the Systems Alliance. So, they're not in a good place right now. Bark tries to play it off as, oh, I was responding to your distress call. I'm an engineer. Now, they're very dubious about this, because no one docked with them. And also, where the fuck did you come from, you furry fuck? But they're desperate. Now, the captain is not trusting Bark all that much, but she's at the end of her rope, basically. They've been stuck here a while, they're starting to run low on supplies, both food and water. So, she's gotten to that point where she's not sure. She's not sure she should bite the bullet and go for it, or to play it safe and leave him in there. At that point then, there's quite a large explosion, and the alarms all go off on the ship. The captain starts to talk to some of the security guards next to her, and they relay to her that the prisoner has escaped. Now, Bark sees the captain's face just drop, goes bleach white, and she starts to shake, and she collapses against the wall on the other side, along with, honestly, her soldiers. They all start to... They look like they know they're about to die, and there's nothing they can do about it. Bark starts to ask them by scrubbing down and slapping it against the door, so that they can see, what the hell was going on. At which point the captain just... She says to him that she kind of decides that it's all or nothing at this point, and comes clean with him and says that, look, we have a prisoner on the ship, a high-value target, who is incredibly dangerous. We need to stop her, we need to put her down, but I don't think we can. But there's a glimmer in her eye. The captain in her, comes on, and she stands. She adjusts her uniform. She commands the two men with her to go to the armory, armor up, grab 3 blaster rifles, and grab the Wookiee's crossbow weapon. And so they scamper off to go do that. She turns to Bark and says, "Can you fight?" And Bark's like, well, kind of. I'm an engineer, but I'm not really much of a fighter. And she says, good enough. We're gonna have to get to this part of the ship. We need to basically vent the ship on that level. And we're gonna need you to bypass some systems to allow us to do it. So we can just eject the bitch into space. The Sith. So Bark agrees to this, because he knows he's trapped, so better this than stay in a cell. So he armors up with his gear, he gets his crossbow back, and the captain grabs her laser pistol, and also a rifle that she shoulders. Now, her, Bark, and the two security guards start to run towards the turbo lift, so that they can start heading to the same level that the Sith is on, so that he can jerry-rig it to make it vent that level of the ship. He hears the captain talk quite a lot to different guards all over the ship, different members. They've also got some high-value Marines on there as well, or the closest two Marines in the Star Wars universe, And there's a quite furious battle going on. She gets a lot of screaming coming across the radio and begging and the sound of almost tearing. It's not good, basically. Eventually they arrive on the level, and at that point they climb off the turbo lift, and they've got like a T-shaped hallway in front of them. So on the left is one way, on the right is the other way, and then straight ahead is where the medical bay is, which is where she was being kept, the Sith. They need to go right, but right now they are just to the left of the T-junction, so they start bolting to the right, at which point they turn because they see it's hard to describe, it's kind of a reddy-orange light, creeping, though, down the hallway very slowly, not moving like light usually does, kind of like in the Terry Pratchett universe, it moves like treacle. It's slow light. And they hear screaming and gunfire coming down from the hallway. As they turn to look, they see the soldiers desperately backing up, firing their rifles as they go, as they see this horrific visage of this partially wrecked, just destroyed, mutilated woman floating in midair, surrounded by darkness. And then around the darkness is like red fire with lightning of like deep black cracking through the red fire. And her eyes are glowing, or more specifically, her one eye is glowing, her right eye, her left eye is gone. And she's moving down the hallway. She lifts one of the guards who are firing at her up and turns him to his side and just starts to rip him apart with the force from his stomach, as they see the flesh tear and his intestines spill out all over the floor, as he's clearly gone into shock. His eyes have rolled into the back of his head and his tongue is kind of lolling out of his mouth, and she just tosses him aside like he's nothing. The next guy, who's continuing to fire at her but starting to consider running like he's going to turn, she grabs him with the force, turns him round, makes the barrel of the gun pull up to his chin and makes him pull the trigger. Spray of his brain and blood covers the roof and the wall next to him. As she continues down the hallway, the captain, she almost enters a trance where she draws her pistol and starts to walk towards this complete and utter just incarnation of evil. She points her pistol and starts walking towards it, firing as she goes. Every shot hits its mark, but nothing happens. They go in, they split the skin, they go all the way through and out the other side, and she is still moving towards the captain. The captain gets closer and closer and closer until just when she's close enough to touch, the captain just gets ripped from about there outward, in like a spider's web pattern, and those individual chunks just go all over the place. At which point Bark is like, what should I, he decides he's going to try and run to the right, but before that point, he's too late. He gets grabbed by the Sith with the Force, lifted up, and his individual limbs pulled off, one by one, until he's just a torso and a head. As she continues moving towards him, looks him, gets about this close, looks him dead in the eye, and just starts to turn his head all the way around with the Force, and then off his shoulders, and just drops his limp corpse to the ground. At which point, Bark awakens, opens his eyes, he's in the bridge, And there are crew members here with the captain. And the captain turns and says, What? What the fuck? Who the hell's this? Why is this beast on my bridge? Guards, take him to the brig! Needless to say, Bark is not happy by this arrangement. So, Rons. Rons has left at the captain's ready room and is no longer a little astromech droid, but a taller Twi'lek woman in the Jedi garb. Now, Rons is a bit more pragmatic than Bark, and decides to head straight down to the armory to find Rolo and Victus and try and figure out what's going on. Ron's, obviously it's going to take Ron's quite some time because the power is still off, and needs to make his way down the turbo lift shaft, basically. It's going to take him a couple of hours. On the way down, there's a point where everything goes dark, and Ron's suddenly in a long hallway. Now, Ron can see in front that it's a massive hallway, in the same architecture of the ship, mind. And it just keeps on going into darkness. And he turns, and the same is behind him. Now, he turns again, and there's someone in the darkness moving slowly towards him, as he hears a sound of a metallic foot onto the ground, and then sort of the sound of a soft, fleshy foot hit the ground. And this continues, one by one, by one, by one. Eventually, this being leaves the shadow of the darkness, and what Ron is confronted with is this horrific amalgamation of droid parts and the bits of what appeared to be a Twi'lek woman, kind of ripped and mashed and broken and reformed into this horrific cyborg-type being that is limping slowly towards him, and is, in a way, screaming as it moves, but the voice is the voice of a woman, and kind of, it's been cyberized, basically, as it continues to scream and moves towards Ron's arm out. But no life in those eyes anymore. As it continues moving towards Ron's, it reaches down and grabs a lightsaber. At which point Ron's is panicking and turns to run the other way, and is met with a wall, just there. Wasn't there before, is now. Ron's has to turn around, back to the wall. This thing is getting closer and closer and closer. You can see the torn flesh, ligaments, hanging loose, with a metallic skeleton underneath, with these bits of flesh just clinging to it by, like, small tendrils of vein and cartilage and sinew. And Ron's instinctively, somehow, knew the lightsaber would be at his hip, and reaches down, and there it is. Sparks the thing on, and enters combat. This is a much quicker combat than the others. It did not last very long. This thing didn't seem to be that well at defending itself, honestly. It was all show and no punch. At which point Ron's cuts the thing down, and he appears back in where he was, halfway down an elevator shaft, still as a Twi'lek woman, mind, and continues his way down to the armory. So yeah, basically, at this point now, apart from Bark, all three of them have had a vision, let's say, of kind of their worst fears of what they may become. And if you're ever, like, partially into Star Wars at this point, you know what's going on. This place is filled with the dark side. This place is surrounded by and consumed by the dark side. It's a lot like what Luke walked into on Dagobah. I'm lucky, because I think two of my players have never seen the original Star Wars. Their only exposure to Star Wars is actually the new movie. My other friend, who plays Bark, has watched all the movies, but never really gone into the extended universe at all. And Hannah, she's watched all the movies now, but only fairly recently. And she's heard me talk about a lot of the lore and things like that, to her, to her own chagrin. But, again, it's that thing of, if I had a proper, like, full-on Star Wars fan on my hands, this wouldn't have worked. They would have known straight away what was going on. They would have known they were in not that much danger, basically. They know it's a vision, it's a, caused by the dark side and all that kind of stuff. So I was very lucky on that front with this. So next time, what we'll do, we'll catch up with Rolo and Victus when Ron finally gets down to them, as currently Bark is sort of stuck in a perpetual loop. This just keeps repeating itself over and over and over. And within that, there are times where he decides to stay in his cell, there's times when he decides to go another way, he tries so many different options, but she always seems to find him. No matter where he goes, she fucking finds him. And he dies over and over and over again. Now, I know you're all a bit, if you know anything about Star Wars, you're a bit dubious about what's going on with Bark, because that is not a Force vision. That sort of thing isn't a normal Force vision. Basically, I'm trying to do sort of a ghost story type thing with this mission. The idea of it is that they're on a ghost ship. People who are trapped there through the Force itself, basically. The Sith they had on board all the way back when, her mind, her being, reached out with the Force and, entrapped them all, basically, so that their spirits could never leave. That's the general idea. So yeah. Next time, like I said, should be good. I hope you all have a good day.